Oh, there we go, 5:30. All right, it's 5:30. Do I have to bang this one, Joe?
Yeah.
Remember. Call the order. I'm Jim Irvin, the chair. Call the order on 7/30/2024 at 5:30 for the zoning board of appeals of Lake Isabella. Can you all stand for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Malcolm?
Yep. I'm here.
Angela's out. Jeff?
I'm here.
Greg?
Yep.
And the chair, Jim, is here. We have a quorum, so 4. Did everybody have a chance to look at you want to do the agenda first? I mean, I don't care. We can do the minutes if you want to just do the minutes.
Yeah.
Everybody look at the minutes, have a chance. Okay, can I get a motion, for approval?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the last CBA meeting.
Take a second.
I have a second.
All right, well, I ask for the vote. Can we get a vote for the yeas?
You think it's all in favor?
All in favor?
Yeah.
Yay.
And then any opposed?
Any opposed? Nope. Here we go. Approval of minutes, minutes have been approved. So we're down to business, call the public hearing to order at 5:31. This is in regard to action requested for the variance 2024-01 on 8777 River Road.
Mr. Chair, the applicant who's in attendance tonight is seeking approval to allow an accessory structure to be placed on a vacant lot across the street from their primary structure. Due to the accessory structure size and the vacant lot being the waterfront of the two, variances are necessary from clauses B and D of section 1234(4) of the zoning ordinance. Our zoning ordinance allows for accessory structures to be located across the street from a primary dwelling with several conditions. Those conditions are that the two parcels must have an overlapping frontage. The accessory structure cannot be the one located on the waterfront parcel. So the primary residence or the primary structure can be, and the accessory can be across the street. Must be at least 896 square feet. So when the council did this in planning commission, they wanted larger structures, and I'll get into that in a minute. And we currently do it as a special land use. Now, the zoning ordinance was amended in 2018 to specifically allow for lack of a better term, street hopping. And at the time, the village had been in a multi-year effort of discussion with our residents, discussion with the association, trying to come up with ways to better store things in our community. The entire premise of that conversation, quite frankly, focused on what I will say is our traditional platted lots. So we did extensive discussion and work in trying to figure out how to make this work and what those scenarios would be. So the picture on the right is kind of the scenario that was in our mind when we said, you know, we need to come up with options for people to have more storage in the community. Let's allow them to hop the street. So you have a whole bunch of waterfront lots there on Clubhouse Drive that are all built in. So you have nowhere that you can put a garage if you needed to do one in a side yard, let's say. But you've got a lot of vacant non-waterfront lots across the street from it. So we said, you know, this is an opportunity to say, let's let you put a garage there so you can store all your stuff, as opposed to trying to use the LIPOA storage area, which is full, or storing it outside, or getting a storage unit, or whatever. The reality that we found is people like to have their stuff near them, so they can keep an eye on it, so they can see it. You know, with the investment that some of our residents have made in campers and motorhomes and boats, you know, that's a significant investment that you want to keep an eye on. So we said, okay, what's the right formula to make this happen? And we spent a ton of time trying to come up with, you know, what are the scenarios to make this happen and still make it look like this is blended into the community. So on the left-hand side, you've got two kind of illustrations of things that we actually went through with our council and our planning commission, tons of examples. And what we came up with was you have to have overlapping frontage, overlapping parallel frontage. So the top illustration is Pequena, which I think the green checkbox is actually where Jeff lives, might be a lot next to it, but so in a hypothetical scenario there, if the house was across the street, you've got it kind of on the edge of a cul-de-sac, where can you put that garage? And what we found is, all right, you could jump the street right there because it has a parallel frontage and actually, both of those lots, the check mark and the X ultimately were deemed to be okay because they had that overlapping parallel nature. Where we ran into a hell of a problem, quite frankly, was the cul-de-sacs. You know, what to deal with, how to do something there that made some sense. And ultimately, we couldn't come up with something that said, you know, these two lots are logically together. So that's why we settled on the parallel frontage. It does kind of negate the ability to do it on cul-de-sac. So not everybody in the village has this opportunity to do a garage or an accessory structure across the street. The planning commission has approved about 10 or 12 at this point in time as special land uses. Garages across the street, we had one this year, we had, I think, one or two last year. The one last year was 2 stories, had well and septic, it doesn't have living quarters, but it had, you know, office and game room and that kind of stuff. You know, this year, the one we've had was a pretty traditional, you know, like 900 square foot, single story garage, nothing spectacular, but as part of those amendments, we said you could go to 2 stories, you know. We made the ordinance much, much more permissive than it had been in terms of what you could do with accessory structures, mainly focusing on garages. We did go back in our 2022 comprehensive update and expanded the ability to do second sheds in a lot of places, recognizing that a garage may be somewhat of a financial hurdle and it's not an equitable regulation to have that this is your only option. So if you have a shed and you need more space, you could do a second shed as opposed to only being able to do a garage. So we certainly have made efforts to make the ordinance more attainable for people to do development in our community. Now, in the case of the applicant, I'll be honest, this is a scenario we never envisioned. It never came up and it was never part of our discussion. The applicant owns, I believe, 240 acres, 280, 240, roughly somewhere there, a lot, across the street from the village. And they have a primary structure there, and they own another 5 and change across the street in the village. The applicant, late last year, brought in a little shed. And they use that obviously for their lake access for the house across the street. This is where I believe they store their lake stuff. You know, there's no utilities, there's no living quarters there. It's storage for their lake stuff because it's quite a haul to get back to that house across the street, quite frankly. We reached out to them when we found out, hey, this is put in, can't do this in the village. You know, you one, have to have a permit, and 2, we don't allow the vacant to be the one that's got the accessory structure on the waterfront. The applicant was out of state at the time. We worked with them on scheduling. They could have made the June meeting. I was actually not available in June, so I said, let's get it in July when everyone I know is gonna be here, so. In our ordinance, there are criteria established. The ZBA must determine that the application meets at least 7 of the 10 conditions in order to grant a variance. So this is one of the changes that we made in 2022, where before you had to meet all of these, and we refined it down and said, let's make it 7 to 10. You know, you've met at least a majority of them at that point in time. There are a handful of these that I did not say yes or no, only because the nature in which the ordinance was written did not conceive of this scenario. This was not something that we had thought through and discussed at the time in terms of, is this something we want to allow or not in a general concept? I mean, the size stuff was, and that was done more than anything else because our concern, if you go back to that photo of, you know, what the waterfront neighborhood looked like, we didn't want to put garages or smaller structures that would have a negative impact on property values for the developed homes adjacent to it essentially. So we were saying to people, if you're gonna jump the street, you're gonna have to develop to a higher standard because we want that structure to not have a negative impact on the values of the homes adjacent to it. In this case, that's certainly not something that is part of that discussion, so. The ones that I definitely think the application meets, certainly not related to an economic or financial hardship. It would not impair the public's health, safety, or well-being. And, it's the minimum request necessary, and it's not of a general or recurrent nature that we need to amend the ordinance. So that's 4 yeses. 3 no's, I think are pretty hard to argue around. It would, I think, bestow somewhat of a special privilege because the ordinance really doesn't say you can do a small accessory structure across the street and you can't do an accessory structure on the waterfront side. It's really not related to a practical difficulty, in my opinion. There are tons of opportunity to develop the parcel in a way that meets the code. Since it's already there, it is somewhat self-created. So with that, those are the criteria in the ordinance. You have a staff report. We did have one comment come in advance today that was, concerns from one of the owners up on Whispering Pines, and that he pointed out that this section over here owns, I believe, 2 of these lots over here, so it's kind of the same scenario, but besides that, when I looked through all of our lots in the village, I came up with 3 examples in the village of having a non-waterfront home and a vacant waterfront lot owned by the same individual. Pueblo Pass, El Camino Grande, and Lincoln Drive. So there were 3 out of everything else I looked at in the village. With that, I can answer any questions before you get to the applicant.
But as you said, we don't have anybody else that currently is set up that way. Our ordinance currently reads no accessory structures on a waterfront. We have nobody else doing that.
Correct.
Right now. Therefore, might be to set a town like willing for current people that would own across the street. that would-
Correct, yeah, if you count the other one that's pointed out today,
Okay.
you know, 4 total. That'd be 4 total. 3 of them entirely inside the village. That other one is essentially the same scenario where it's a large parcel outside and, I don't have to say small because they're bigger parcels, but a smaller waterfront parcel than the non-waterfront parcel. But the rest are, one's a T lot in a big house over on Lincoln. The one on El Camino is the vacant lot, kind of right when you come in. That's owned by the house kind of across the street on the hill, Marx's. And then Pueblo Pass, one of the houses down there has one of the waterfront lots as well. Other than that,
Did the one on Lincoln get denied before? I didn't know it was a key lot.
no, they've never come in to do an accessory structure across the street. The only,
Pueblo get denied?
nope,
Didn't they have a shed on it at one point? And
there was something down there, yes. I don't think it was that house though.
oh, it wasn't.
No,
Because
it-
there's like they had, some people have like a big area right there.
Yeah.
and I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, I believe it is the people who are building right now. They had a shed down there of some type
Okay.
but yeah, there was something down there, but I don't believe it was the house across the street. I'm pretty sure it was the people who are building right now.
Okay.
At least that's what we sent it to and it disappeared.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Any other questions? No?
I guess, one question is in regards to one of your the parcel structure cannot reasonably be developed or utilized in a manner allowed by the zoning district where the land is located. You said, I think it's important, as it's my understanding that it's been their intention to retain the portion of the parent parcel. I guess, can you explain your reasoning behind?
So for my discussion with them, you know, this has been intended to be their lake access for their water parcel is why, so.
Okay.
I said that.
Just to keep that parcel no matter what they're.
I may be wrong, but that was my understanding.
But that intention was after the Whispering Pines development was broke apart, correct?
So correct, yeah, this whole area was, this whole area is actually part of the reason we incorporate as a community. There was a developer by the name of Hugh Berghaus, he, rest in peace, that at one point in time wanted to put in a trailer park down there. And he had a deal worked out that he was going to have more proceeds and royalties from the sale of the trailers because he had a specific brand and make you had to put in, than he was going to make from the land. And the community, largely organized through the LIPOA at the time, filed an injunction that Judge Chamberlain awarded to the village or the community. Said, we're not gonna let anything happen, they're working on incorporation, we're gonna let all that go through before you can do anything. So that was one of the main reasons, in addition to road maintenance, that the village actually incorporated was to prevent the trailer park from being built down there. We incorporated in 1998. That area came in with a development proposal shortly thereafter, I think 1999, 2000. And the state of Michigan had a rule at the time that if a developer is required to put in a private community septic system, like a cluster system, the local municipality must be the responsible entity to ensure environmental compliance with the system. The village objected to that because we were a newly incorporated community. We didn't have DPW. We contracted with Malley to plow our streets. Like, we had no ability to do this whatsoever. So we filed a lawsuit against the state of Michigan. It was Rule 33, and we actually prevailed in court. That was wrapping up when I got hired in 2004. That lawsuit had been settled. We were still in a lawsuit with the Berghaus family over the property at the time. And they came back in with the Whispering Pines project as kind of the compromise. At the time, there was a boat launch that was on actually the applicant's property that we worked with them to say, look, you get rid of this boat launch that the Amish were using, and we'll agree to the community marina you want to put in out on the point, because they want to have a little marina for their own people. And as long as your people are LIPOA members, we'll agree to everything. And so we did that. And they were, they were on board, they came in. Despite our recommendations, they felt the correct sequence of development was to start with what is phase one, which is the island area. And they felt this way because those are all waterfront, where the area that turned out to be not in the development, only some of it was waterfront. There were wooded lots kind of back along River Road, that area. And said, we're gonna, do this because we can sell these at a higher premium. Well, that's the part that requires the septic system, the sewer system. The wooded area didn't. I think there were gonna be, but you could have done it without that. There's less roads to do. Like, nope, we wanna do this, so they paid to bring natural gas in all the way from M20. They paved Rollin Road from River Road up to almost the creek there. They paved Tradeview Court. And by then it was the summer of 2008. And we all know what happened to the housing market and the economy shortly thereafter. And it sat undeveloped for another couple of years. Independent Bank foreclosed on it. We reached out to Independent Bank and put together a proposal to buy the island portion of the development. We wanted to keep that as a park, essentially. And we had put together a proposal that would have required Independent Bank to hold on to it for probably 8 to 10 months while we went through a grant process that we were pretty confident that we were gonna get. And they came back and said, any other time we would take this deal because you're right, this is the only way we're gonna get our money back in full for this project. But we took TARP money, Toxic Asset Relief Program, and this is a foreclosed property, so it is a toxic asset. And we have to move it off our books for whatever we can reasonably get. So we can't agree to this. So they broke off what was going to be phase 2 into its own parcel, which it still was because it had never been formally approved in the site condo process. Phase 1 sat there for several years before a buyer came in and bought it. In the hole, because the bank didn't want to start selling off individual parcels, because then they would have been the developer per the master deed and have to deal with all that. And so, yeah, that's the storied history of Whispering Pines.
Is that when you guys can I ask them a question? Is that when you guys came in possession of that property?
Yes, it was approximately 2010. I don't know, Tim, do I need to say my name or
No,
all that stuff? Okay. Yeah, anyway, gentlemen, thank you for taking the time out of your busy afternoon. I'm Kent Roth. I'm the son of the late William K. Roth and my mother, Claudia Roth, who is now the current owner of the 240 and also the 5.6 across the street. Yeah, it was 2010 that John McClinic and my father bought that piece of property. And it was going to be quiet area, basically, for no hunting or anything in that area. McClinic's guys were gonna hunt in it and our guys weren't gonna hunt in it. And then sometime they divided up into 6 lots. Dad and mom were gonna keep the lot, which she has now, and McClinic was gonna take the lot that has that little spur that goes out into the lake. But the reason they bought it is because I had down 205 lots and they're plus a park. And Dad and John didn't want 205 people across from their deer camps. So that's why they bought it. Yeah, that's my father was always, you want control over it, buy it, then you have control over it. They divided it up into 6 lots, but I think they made it 5 now. They added those 2 lots on the end, where they're gonna try to sell them together. The ones I think you're talking
Yeah.
about, Johnny,
Yeah.
is still on.
Yeah.
With that, very, very nice job, Tim. I'm involved in the Village of Shepherd and RCBA meetings that go anything like this. Very well done. This guy's an asset. You just basically hit all the nails that I wanted to hit. The only thing I can say is answer any more questions, but if you've been by, you can't see the shed or the accessory building from the road. And I just left there probably about 45 minutes ago to see what mom actually has in there. And it's fishing poles, a grill and chairs and stuff like that. So they don't have to haul all that stuff across the road. It's gonna remain wooded. It's really hard, like I say, hard to see from the road. You can see it from the water a little bit. And it's contiguous to our property. She has that homesteaded right now, and I believe it's all under the same tax ID number now with the 240. But so with that, any more questions?
The shed is completely movable too, right? It's not
It is.
attached to a foundation.
Yeah, it's
Right.
removable. Yeah, it's I'm trying to think of the guy's name on Picker down there that Mitchell is his last name. He does the sheds.
Sure, yeah.
Mid-Michigan or Mayday or whatever. It's one of his units.
What are the plans in the future for that particular lot? I mean, is there any plans on building a house or anything else like that there in the future or?
Not when you got one across.
What I tried to talk her into doing is selling the 240 and keep by John, I'll put a deer camp on a house there. But that didn't work.
Yeah.
But no, just keeping it as lake property. If my brother and I were in our 60s, we still hunt and our kids don't. But we're gonna keep it as a hunting camp as long as we can. And like I said, you have an 84-year-old woman that spends her winters down south, and she's not having keggers out there or anything like that. And my brother and I are short in bed shortly after she is, so. But just right now, hunting property and lake property.
Did you get any complaints at all?
One that someone said, someone built something down there. I can't see what it is, but I can see a roof. And now I think that's kind of moot because you've got, the next two
houses.
getting built right next to it. Neither one of them have complained or objected.
And I think we have a purchase agreement on the 3rd lot.
Yep. Last lot.
So there's something else coming down the pipe on that.
We'll know this week.
And you got Ellerman's already sold.
One of the reasons I ask is because the intention was to always kind of keep that for lake access and stuff. I mean, the ordinance hasn't really changed since 2010. right, didn't allow sheds on there in 2010, and that's the only reason I was asking, because I was curious about that. It's beautiful, by the way. I think that it's been improved that greatly over there, but.
I wish everybody could put nice sheds like that up on the lake, so, you know.
Yeah, I think, and it's not just sheds either, it's any accessory structure, it's garages. I mean, nothing like that should be, and I can see it from both sides, especially from your guys' point of view, just having the ability to just go across the street and you don't have to haul everything down there, but I can also see it from, any other, anyone else who lives on the lake, that, they could be worried that this could potentially bring down property values. When we're looking at all of, these 10 items that we need to pick 7, or at least have 7 of them be, a yes to, essentially a green check mark, and I'm having a hard time doing that. And I'm not, and I'm sure you understand from, being on the.
Right.
But, I mean, we can go through and, kind of tackle each one of these, I think, if you'd like to, Chair, to just see if we can come up with a reason behind it, or some sort of, but when I'm looking at these, really, I only see 4 that I would say yes, but I think I don't.
Well, the applicant has 15 minutes. Do you have anything else that you would like to discuss at this point or anything?
I just wanted to explain, like,
No,
we have we have to kind of, we set these rules to make sure we're, doing it the correct way, and just wanted to make sure if you guys have something else to say to kind of maybe rebut, if you want to talk to these particular points in general.
well, if you go through them, Mr. Chair, and, if there's a question for us, we'll try.
Is there any other public comment? No?
Mother, Rick, would you like to say anything?
I know, unless you want to see summer
Pictures.
pictures instead of winter, snow.
I drove by it on my boat the other day. It does look nice.
We're working on it all the time, making it nicer.
It looks nice.
I'm gonna have more flowers soon.
So if there's no other public comment, then we can close the public hearing and go on to deliberations at 5:57. So we'll go on to some additional discussion. If you want to start one by one, I'm okay with that. If you want.
I agree with the ones that Tim outlined to be, yes, it's not related to a financial economic hardship, it's not going to affect public health and safety. Minimum variance required, yes, and then.
So,
Practical, yeah, so it's just. A,
so let's start with A. Do you have any comment on A specifically?
strict application of the zoning requirements would prohibit the use and or development of land in a manner otherwise allowed in the zoning district involved. I can't think of a reason why this would apply. I don't think, I don't think it meets this criteria either. Unless, do you guys think it does?
I'll be right up front. Regardless of how many points it does take from that, I don't want to set a precedence in the village itself. No offense against you guys at all. I do like to shed. It's a good looking shed, but we let one person do it and everybody else is gonna want to do it down the road. And me being on the planning commission for all the years that I have, that was one of our key points in talking about doing the sheds in the garages across the street. We don't want them on the waterfront for multiple reasons, mainly because of what it does to the value of other houses around there, what it looks like in some cases, it may be a beautiful shed like you got, or it just could be some rickety old, I bought it used shed, and that part is what set me down that road and saying, I don't wanna see any accessory buildings on a waterfront lot like that. Part of the reason I asked is if you had future plans of putting a house on there, a small modular home, whatever fits into the ordinance stuff, then I might be swayed to maybe think about it and you do it with, if you had some kind of commitment of doing it in the next year or so. Then I could probably be persuaded, but until I hear differently, I don't see the hardship or anything like that, that would mean for you guys to go keep it. So my vote, regardless whether it's 4 or whether it's 7 meetings, is just to know, I'm sorry, I
That's fine.
don't see that being consistent with the rest of the way we have to deal with the rest of the village. So I just want to get that.
That's certainly something that I was concerned with, that is that if for some reason this did meet 7, the next thing you know, we'll have people buying these lots across the street and then building, a full building on the, right on the water, about like Maine. I agree with you. I would prefer there not be sheds on, even though it does, I do think it looks nice. I just would prefer it not.
One of the things that is important to think about too with that 2018 date is that was done in correlation with our work with the health department and the state to get the development restrictions lifted for South and Gulf Estates too. So one of the big concerns we had prior to that was rooted on, these are unbuildable lots because there's not well and septic permits available, people are buying waterfront property on the cheap because they can't develop it. After that point in time, I think the market is largely gonna prevent that scenario just because you can get septic permits now. We've had, 40 new homes built on the south side of the lake in the last 5 years because of that availability. So I think the market kind of addresses that critique more than it would have pre-2018.
I just remember all the issues we've had, not even just waterfront, but with sheds in general. People putting sheds up right and left without doing any cares about doing the setbacks and the lot line, blocking neighbors' views of the lake because of where they chose the shed. I mean, this was headaches that we had to deal with many times over the years.
So we were getting requests too of, hey, can I buy this waterfront lot? And I've got a non-waterfront lot across the street that is buildable. Can I put my house on the waterfront lot, run my well and septic lines under your street? And I'm like, no, you can't do that. Like,
And it even comes down to people who had waterfront lots to bring their campers down and would, camp on their lot.
Yep.
With no other things there too, and the complaints that came out of that from the neighbors was massive. So that was another thing that was written into the ordinance denying that capability as well, so.
And I would say in a strict application, you might be right, and I'm looking at through some of the things that we have commented on here, I would say. For myself, I think that structure is far enough away from any other homes that's big enough property that's not really gonna impact property values for anybody around there. Now, if you do that somewhere else on the lake, I'm not saying it wouldn't, okay? I also think that they have a significant investment in the properties around there and they're not looking to devalue what they have either. They have an incentive to keep that value high over there. Not everybody necessarily would either. So that's just something I was thinking about. The only other thing that I really think is that in this particular case, denying that really allow for reasonable use of that property for them. Because they could go put a post in and they can chain up a bunch of tubes and they can do a bunch of other stuff that's gonna look like crap over there too. I think that would be much more apt to be an eyesore or impact property values than that. So I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here on some of that stuff. Well, I highly agree with what you're both saying as far as the precedent. I don't know if anybody's got any comments on that or not.
Yeah, that was something that I was thinking too, is just, how far off is it off of the water?
I think 85 feet.
It's pretty steep.
And I
I tried to get back there, but just gave it up.
At Water Edge,
It's not locked, just the.
I didn't want, I wasn't gonna go
Because
back.
Dominic uses to go raise.
All of a sudden, the guy on a tractor shows up with a shotgun.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's me, depending on the.
They use that, our road to go back to the other properties when they was working on it.
Gotcha.
approximately 75 feet.
I used to use our drone to take photos. I didn't go back there.
Is it the idea that you could see it? There's almost 6 acres there.
No, I
You can
don't
put
think
it in
it's-
woods and you'll never see it.
I mean, I don't, yeah, I would agree
I know.
with that. I don't, but I understand what, you know, these two gentlemen are saying about precedent, because there are. While it's not unique, it's fairly unique. I mean, I don't know that there's that many lake lots left where you could buy a property off the water and a property on the water. I mean, there aren't that many left.
No, but I could see somewhere even outside of the people that currently set that up. You know, I could still see somebody buying a lot on the lake and buying a lot across the street and doing all of
I would
that.
be surprised.
And I would still be the
Yeah.
same thing. You're not building a shed on the lakefront. So just because it's a 3 or 4 that currently meet, it doesn't mean it can't happen in the future.
I agree.
And I would still say, no, I don't want to see an accessory building on the waterfront. So it's period. So.
Yeah, the only scenario I could even conceive of someone doing that would involve potentially a T lot. In one of the T lots that only has the 25-foot frontage, not the 75.
Right.
You know, that, other than that, I think that the values we have on our community for property. You know, you're not just gonna dump $100,000, $150,000 on a waterfront lot. For no reason, just.
I mean, are we sure there are any accessory buildings on the lake on a lot that's adjoining a lot? There's gotta be a.
Not across the street. They're
No, not across the street,
currently side by side, but
but on accessory lots, so you still see.
Yeah. Certainly on side by side.
On the lake.
Right.
If you had 2 lots next to each
That's-
other, and
that's right,
yeah.
if they had a garage over that way next to it, you can, but in those cases, if they do that, the garage is matching the house. In those cases, they are combined lots, you know, here, so we can actually tell the owner, you can't separate those houses or separate those lots under any circumstances without approval of the council, or whatever, for sale, one or the other, anything like that. We don't have as much say, obviously, for somebody who lives outside of those, in fact, we have no say about what you can and can't do with your lots across the street on River Road, other than one side and this side, so. I get the idea, I get the reasoning behind it, I just can't sell it to myself and think that other people in the village would be okay with that. Or they'd be lining up saying, I wanna do the same thing. And then we got good theory of sheds and garages on the waterfront all over the place.
Well, the only other thing that I would. Look, is that. It's not a permanent structure, right, and so.
That's,
That's the only other thing that I would say gives a little bit more flexibility to me.
yeah, that's why I asked that question too, because it can be moved, but. you know,
And
like-
that was why I alluded to in the packet, you know, you guys could grant approval of conditions and.
Yeah.
And one of those could be that, you know, the shed's only available to be used under the current property arrange, you know, like.
Yeah.
Sell the property
I do-
outside the Roth family, it's gotta go type deal.
I do have a significant concern about a couple of those lots bringing stuff over, but.
Yeah,
I mean, the one on Pueblo, they did a great job developing that waterfront stuff, but all their stuff is sitting out there.
Yeah.
Do we really wanna see it all sitting out there, or do we wanna see that in a nice looking shed or building? I don't know.
Yeah, so
yeah,
That's all
especially
I
the
was
screen
getting
from the lake.
when they have a pergola, or you know what that is on there?
They can add that.
They can.
Yeah, they can add that. So. Anything else anybody wants to say on A?
I will add, I will say to their credit, they are LIPOA members. 'Cause that was one
Yeah,
thing
that was one
I
of my
did,
questions.
I did figure out like, how'd you get your vote in if you're, you know, no, you're dues paying members of the association. Like, we got rid of the boat launch on that property.
Let's go to C. The parcel or structure cannot reasonably be developed or utilized in a manner allowed by the zoning district where the land is located. Well, I totally agree that that can be developed.
Yes.
Even though
I was asking.
even though
Yeah.
I think I'm supposed to go last, but,
No,
you know, all I would say is I go back and there's 2 things here. One is even when you bought it, it wasn't allowed, you know, so I'm not saying that you would have known, you might have known at that time that you weren't allowed to put a structure on there, that's why I asked, so. But that was part of the ordinances on that, back in 2010. But I go back again to, you know. Does it allow for reasonable development of what they want to use that for? Yeah, I guess I really don't have any, I got a plus and a minus on that one.
I think your keyword there was reasonable,
Right.
you know.
Anybody else have anything to say on that?
My question was already answered for that, but,
And then the I was. With the granting of variance would not be injurious, whatever, or detrimental to any property adjoining or property subject to variance. I don't know that what you got was really a complaint or not, you know, I personally don't think it would be detrimental or injurious to adjoining properties. It might be for future though, for setting a precedent.
Well, they are on, 5.25 acres, so it's not like somebody's gonna build 12 feet away from the lot
Right.
line or anything like that and have that in view, but.
I would be very surprised if, somebody had an appraisal on a house and the appraiser said that the property wasn't worth X amount of dollars because of this.
I agree, so I don't think any appraiser would do that with all these.
So,
There's only a couple houses that can even see it, believe it or not.
Right. To me, the killer is depressive, and I'm sorry, so it's just, I just, almost 20 years of doing this with planning commission and the ZBA kind of stuff like that, is I've seen,
I've
well, if
seen,
I do it, or so-and-so did it, so I want to do it now, and that to me is a red
Have you
flag.
ever seen it? Have you been back there to see it?
I'm just using other examples of
I
other
know,
sheds.
I just was wondering if you'd ever been back there.
Oh, yeah, I know the area pretty well.
I didn't go back, I just drove my photo.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna walk on the property, unless I had permission, I wasn't gonna do that part, but
I'm gonna
from
bring
the
it,
pictures, from the lake, from the road, you can see it, right, it's not
Mhm.
really, really easily seen.
I can-
I'm gonna show you where I saw
I
it.
could just saw it from the link.
Cause you took a picture from the road, didn't you?
I saw it from,
So, when they-
you know, we have a camera that has very good zoom technology, but I saw it from right here, a half mile away.
Oh, at the end of,
Queens Lake.
Queensway? Okay.
I was down there, I'm like, what in the heck is that? And I zoomed in with
That's how
the
you saw
camera, I'm like, oh, that's a shed. What's that doing there? That's where I saw it from, was right there. So all the photos I have of it from a distance are from that location. With a camera that has 50 optical zoom. You know. But I think beyond that, the only people, other than those on the boat, who would really see it are gonna be right in here. On a regular basis, and,
Yeah, and, the purple path.
you know, quite candidly, I think the house getting built here is probably way more of a visual change than the shed down here. Cause this is where the Finnertys are building, is right here.
He can't see the shed from his house.
You consider his driveway, I just took some photos of it when I did his zoning permit.
Yeah, well, actually, the lot goes almost up to his, pretty close to his house.
It does,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, you're down to, you know, maybe up to Brock at the most, I think.
yeah, Brock, that's where probably the
Yeah.
first one.
And that's not really a hotbed of boating. I don't know if you've ever looked at our,
Oh, that's not.
um,
I'm fishing.
I'll show you why it's not a hotbed of boating.
Yeah, everybody's curious about all the cutting down the canal.
A lot of sightseers.
Could have brought Samuel with us, keep things interesting.
Southwest corner. So. Photo from the winter, but you can see that that's pretty mucky through there, you know.
No, no, right here.
Yes.
Thinking outside the box here a little bit. If they can put a dock in right now, no problem, that's what.
There you have.
Their numbers, so. What is your feeling that they had a dock, but it wasn't a normal dock, let's say it was an enclosed dock. Meaning a dock that had walls and a roof on it, kind of stuff like I said, with a park there, but it's like, what's his name, did Mark Moore used to do in the house there, where they could
Hopewell?
slide the boat in like that, but if they had a dock they put out. And had something that was enclosed that would allow them to put some storage stuff in there, is that something we think could pass legally right now with? I'm just thinking outside the box, trying to figure out the way that it could be.
I'll be very clear, I would think the shed is a far less objectionable and far less negative repercussions on other people wanting to do it than that.
Than having a dock, that be
Yeah.
covered dock.
Yeah. And I only say it because, you know, this parcel there is uniqueness, I think, to this arrangement. And. You know,
I could just see the boat barn being just a summer thing,
but
they can be there permanently all year round. Because you have to take your docks out in October. I'm just trying to think of a way to, I try to help.
You know,
some way or
At the
another.
time of year you want to have sightlines, when you got people start.
yeah, I mean, we have been far more
Right, yeah,
steadfast
we're setting
about,
precedent again, too,
we're
right.
not putting anything within 35 feet of the lake.
Oh, that's right,
anything
yeah,
else,
we got 35 feet away.
Like that is a hard line of demarcation
Yeah.
that we will fight you
Okay.
on hard, you know, and.
Look
We
at that,
run into
sorry, just trying to
people
help.
that need variances on waterfront lots because, you know,
Yeah.
their house and their septic, it's like, can I get a reduction on the lakeside? Not gonna happen. Like, we'll work with you on the street all day long, but you are not going within 35 feet of the lake.
No,
That's a
right,
hard
yeah.
line we will.
And
not
that we have to
compromise on.
enforce.
And then we did for accessory structure, I think we did 50, for that, when we did the ordinance, just, and it could be in the floodplain, obviously, but.
Okay, sorry.
Any other, anybody else have anything? At this point?
Can you go back to your comments that you said regarding strict application of zoning requirements and kind of. Cause I know I agree with you on a few of those, but if you can just refresh on what you're saying there. Sure.
I just think that piece of property is large enough and that if the structure's far enough away from anything around there, that it's not gonna have a negative impact on any surrounding homes around there. I do believe that, the applicant has significant investment in the property around there in that area and incentive to keep property values up, okay, and so, in their case, I'm not talking about other people that we might be setting precedent for. And then really my question is, does it really allow for reasonable use of that land, for them? I think somebody can argue either way all day long on that, but, if the intent, even though they still couldn't have done it in 2010, if the intent was to kind of use that as their lake access when they knew that their homes would be across the street. I mean, I would rather see those things enclosed over there in something nice like what they have that have
Float around the yard.
flows around the yard. Well, however that is, it could be chained to a pole or it could be anything. I mean, I could see cabling things down or whatever. Cause I wouldn't want to carry that across the street all the time either. I actually think that the shed and the improvements around there really made that. Really greatly improved the appearance of that area. That was just a rotted out dock that was there before. that I used to catch fish under, that I don't catch fish under anymore. But. So that was just me being a devil's advocate there. It's a non-platted lot. I don't know if that really has anything to do with anything. I know you generally were,
Yeah, and this is, when we revisited the zoning ordinance in 2012, one of the things that we changed were the zoning districts, so. We went from basically an LR1 and an LR2 to an LR1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because we looked at how our community was crafted and said, we've longly been looking at zoning from the standpoint of an 80 by 150 rectangle, because that's what platted lots are, and holy cow, we've got all these other areas of our community that were platted in the 90s, and they're an acre and a half in size, or they're not platted, or, all these other things that's like, we've been trying to pound, the same peg into one hole, and, there's 5 other scenarios that we need to reasonably look at for development purposes, so that was one of the changes that we did. So this property is zoned LR4 now, and I'll bring up our zoning map here. It's better colors for that map. Mixing up the yellow. The yellows on it, yeah, but just.
yeah, that's a real eye chart.
No. There we go. Mind me later, 6 hours. So part of it.
So right here is where we're at in the grand scheme of life, and you are correct, the LR4 color does look a little bit like the LR3. The LR3 was a unique creation that we originally started off with as an overlay district, because this is an area that when we got into amending the plat restrictions, we said, these guys are still gonna have one heck of a problem getting well and septic permits because of the depth of the lots. So we went in and completely redid all of our setbacks, all of our design standards, all of our sizing to say, look, we're gonna shrink this down to a 15-foot setback on the front and go further, but there's utilities with this platted there that we can't. We're not gonna make you do an attached garage, you can do attached or detached. The trade-off, because our concern is values, is, if you're gonna do the smaller home, we up the design requirements, so you've gotta have, the delineation between the ground floor and the second floor in terms of, your siding and your board and back and that kind of stuff. Mainly to recoup that curb value that way, as opposed to, you're just gonna do vinyl siding all in deep, But yeah, so when we redid all that, I said, why is this an overlay district? Let's just make this the zoning there, because, it just made more sense. The LR4 district, is a district that when we went back and looked at everything, said, hey, all these areas here, like this is Medina Bay 1 and 2, this is Foresta Verde, this is Indian Meadows. Up there, Medina Bay and Pino Royale. These were all platted in the 90s, mostly by Frank Cooley. And those are all, well, they're platted subdivisions, and their building and use restrictions are similar to the LIPOA. But you can't look at those and say, these are the same requirements that you're gonna have for plat 4, plat 3, plat 2, plat 1, those are good old fashioned rectangles for the most part. They're small, like my house is here, I'm on 2 lots. I'm 160 by 165, and that's a little over a half acre. All of these through here on Foresta Verde are flipping in at well over an acre, if not more. You got some 5 acres in there. So when we went back and looked at it and said, what are those appropriate things to look at in terms of how do we manage density appropriately in these areas of our community where we got people right on top of each other? And how do we handle development appropriately over here where they're not gonna be on top of each other, but the market's gonna dictate a significant investment in those properties to make sure that the development there complements the existing marketplace.
It's pretty unique property down there, but there are still in that district where there are areas where somebody could want to potentially do that.
With the obviously exception of the one that came up today, which is right here. Well, Pablo is the other one. And Bars is property right here. The other property is right about here. House number keeping.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, Bars. I don't remember the name of this gentleman here. I think it's not Man Things. I don't know.
I looked it up today.
Yeah. And then we, so, I mean, like, most of these are not in, you know,
Now, Mr. Chair, I know we're not public comment. Can I ask Tim a question?
Yeah.
Okay, I just had a little concern. I think Mom said that it was like 3 emails that were sent in from neighbors that were for it. Nothing. She didn't make,
I received none.
okay.
I don't know. See if there's.
Again,
Well, because you know, some of them, they all got over there. They all know.
If it would have came to my email address is what it should have came to.
I just wondered,
I'll go on. I'll pull up the office account as well to see.
70. And
I can't think of it. That's why I'm trying to think outside of the box, you know, do it some way we can come up with something. You know?
I know where you guys are coming from. I've been there too. I like something, but I'm trying to think, all right. I'm gonna have
Just
everybody, I'm gonna have everybody bitching at me.
Well, it's not that, I mean,
Well, it's-
I mean, I think it looks nice, I mean, you've got some really nice improvements there and. You know, trying to find a way, I mean, because strictly speaking, it's just not allowed, right? And there's been not, a permit wasn't pulled, that we didn't go through a process for approvals. Maybe Tim should be here for this, I don't know, but.
Right.
It's recording.
Oh, okay, so. You know, would that have headed it off? Would it have made a difference? I don't know. Maybe, you know, maybe we could have come with some other resolution.
I don't.
I doubt it, but
We were looking at the rules, but there was so much lawyer speak, we couldn't think. We
yeah.
thought, well, you know, the house is across the street. So we kinda,
Well, that's a little unique too, because we allow that in the village, but your residence isn't actually in the village, right? And so that's kind of making another exception, I think.
Yeah, because normally
Because normally we would be saying it
put a
would,
deed restriction in.
and so I don't know if that's really a deal or not, but.
If it was, let's say their house or their land was in the village and they were still trying to do the same
We
thing,
still-
that would still be saying no, because the ordinance strictly says no accessory stuff, stuff like that on the waterfront lots. So,
Is anybody else in 5 acres?
so, but it definitely is unique. It's something we can think about for people who don't live in the village.
And
So,
that is a good point you made regarding the 5 acres, because. You know, if you look at accessory structures, when you have over 2 acres, you can have 2
yeah, up to a certain size.
up to a certain size
But you have
accessory
to have
structure.
dwelling.
We still have
But
to-
that's the problem, is
Right.
that there's no dwelling on
Yeah.
it, but yes, I mean, so there is certain things within. The ordinance that says that, you know, you can't have these, but when it comes to this and having this on the waterfront, it's just
And there are, I mean,
trying to find a way to like.
there are
all right,
very
how can I find a
specific
way to make
laws
this
and rules that govern what we
I
can
got
do
nothing
and
in mind
can't
in the
do
office.
as well.
Okay, thank you.
And so that, you know, like I said, I'm trying
I went through
to
the junk folder as well and
play devil's advocate to find a way. But there are very specific things that we can and cannot do as a board of zoning board of appeals.
Build a house on there and rent the house out. Then the rent, I guarantee that the shed that's on the lot there with the hay is, can have your stuff in it, so. That's what I was sort of hoping that eventually you were gonna build something on there.
Well, we have plenty of everything across the street, beds and everything else, so.
Unless I sold your camp and then I just built it.
So,
Do that.
It's a lifetime free lease.
So I can't move it back.
Let's see.
Jim, I think this is gonna come from you to make her satisfy her. She can't put it anywhere on the piece of property, correct?
Not according to the ordinance,
Even if you can't see it,
even if you can't
No,
see it.
the only way you'd be able to put it on there is there has to be a dwelling there. Just like anywhere else in the village, we don't allow you to put a shed on an empty lot. Unless you meet the standard.
even if it's removed, even if it's movable,
Pardon?
even if it's movable,
And
on wheels,
5
that I
acres.
pull back and forth with the tractor.
The only way
Every day.
you, the only way you can get around it is the other part of the ordinance we did, where if you have the house and you have the lot across the street.
Well,
we will
I'm
provide
talking about.
it to
You're
you.
saying,
Allow you to
you're
do it.
just
That's the
talking
only other
about
way.
parking it in there while you're using it?
Yeah,
What you're talking about?
every day, I just pull the tractor up and pull it up there by the thing and use it and just drive it back up across the driveway and every day we go over there, every weekend.
We have one that Jessica found. From Pam McClintock. Would like to encourage zoning board of appeals to consider variance for Claudia Ross building on the lakeside, John and Pam McClintock. So that is the only
Not
one.
from Pat Woodall.
That Woodhall? No,
He said he got the letter.
he did.
He said he's got email. Well, I'll move it.
Weird on West. Says sign in approve. Hey, look at that. I hate two-factor authentication.
No,
Yeah, but it saves your butt when somebody gets your password, so.
So you think. Would. 2023, October is the last I got from Pat. So I mean, it's that email address, so this. I emailed him on the 16th, his zoning permit approval for his new home. Not heard from Pat since.
discussion.
Yeah, that was the. The one I got. Nope. Nope. We just got the one, so McClintock sent in one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I apologize for not catching that earlier. Where he sent it to.
Any further discussion from the board?
He sent to the office.
So at this point, we need to make a motion to approve or deny, right? That roll call vote or?
Right. I'll go ahead and make the motion that we deny the variance 2024-01. And with that, we also need to set a time frame for having the shed removed, and I would suggest no more than 30 days to have it removed from the property, assuming that the ordinance motion passes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So this is a roll call vote though, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Welcome. You just approved or deny?
I
Approve of the
Yeah,
motion to deny?
motion to deny and have it removed within 30 days.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Yes. I agree, yes. So motion passes to deny. I don't hit that, but, so,
Now I gotta have a big trailer built
yeah.
to set it on. Specially built one.
Do we have to read the finding of fact into into the record or?
It can just be in the minutes, yeah.
Okay. Is that a yes, you want me to read? it?
No, it said it was just.
No, I think if
We'll
you're
just
good
put it
with
in
my
the
tax,
minutes. Yeah,
okay.
I mean, we.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with
With
that,
that,
with, you understand that if we, today being July 30th, gonna have 30 days.
That was my question today,
Yeah,
from today.
so, and if it doesn't within 30 days, then he's gonna be obligated to
Is it-
start process of tickets and all that stuff, which I really don't want to see you have to go through.
Can we at least go till after Labor Day weekend?
Pardon me?
Can we go at least after Labor Day weekend?
45 days.
The 30th takes us to the end of August.
Yeah. I'm on vacation that week. I'm not doing anything.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to say, what do you want to say?
After Labor Day.
Labor Day is what day? September
I think it's the
second, third, and fourth, is it?
Yeah, I think it's the second.
Is what day?
Labor Day.
Monday
is
What's the
second, so
Monday
just-
following?
Just say removed by.
The 10th.
Monday the 9th.
Yeah,
Okay,
but Monday the 9th.
that's fine. I'll amend my motion to that.
Is that September 9th?
September.
Thank you, because like,
do we have to reapprove?
you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
We can
Yes.
just second it.
Okay.
I don't want you to say 30 days limit. I'm not gonna be here, so sorry about your luck.
Okay, so with nothing else, the meeting is adjourned
Yep.
at 6:36.
Thank you for trying to.
Thanks.
Sorry, folks.
Sorry.